She didn't order food for my children. That was the first thing I heard, this shriek echoing across the lake, slicing through a perfectly good Friday evening like a hot knife through butter. There was Karen phone pressed to her ear, pacing up and down our gravel drive, with her face twisted in that way only someone who thinks rules don't apply to them can pull off. Yes, 911, I want her arrested. Now she yelled louder than the cicadas. Meanwhile, my wife Abby just stood there on our porch tray of lemonade in hand, mouth half open, sweat glinting on her forehead, stuck somewhere between laughing and fainting. Because up till then, I thought we'd seen every side of Karen the queen bee of our HOA. But I was wrong. This was something new. See, Karen and her extended family, 12 people I counted, had rolled up like they were entitled to a weekend at our lake cabin. Never mind that we didn't invite them. Never mind that we'd only prepped food for a handful of friends. And when Abby told her as kindly as possible that we just didn't have enough, Karen went nuclear. She didn't just argue, she started bellowing about rights and neglect, stormed off to call the cops, and for a second there, I thought she might actually believe her own story. That's the thing about folks like her, they lie like other people breathe. My neighbor Miguel, who'd come with his girls for the weekend, just looked at me and whispered, "Dude, is she serious?" I wanted to laugh. But after 2 years of this, I knew better. Let me back up a sec. I'm Nate Carter, 41 Marine vet, now a state investigator. Moved out here with Abby to escape the city grind, bought this place for the peace. Didn't take long before Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, made it clear she considered the whole lake her personal kingdom. Never met a rule she couldn't twist. Always had a clipboard, always smiling with just her teeth, never her eyes. Abby, on the other hand, is the beating heart of this place. She bakes, hosts, volunteers, treats everyone like family. It's why this hit her so hard. Memorial Day weekend was supposed to be simple potato salad, smoked ribs, a couple friends, maybe a few too many s'mores. But no sooner had I set down the fire pit poker than the Whitmore parade rolled in 3 SUVs, heels, clacking Karen in her best linen outfit, her son Dylan trailing behind with his headphones and permanent scowl, followed by a wave of cousins, nieces, teenagers. They marched up like it was a timeshare they'd booked 6 months ago. "Oh, we'll just settle in for the weekend," Karen said. All chirp and no courtesy, informing us she'd emailed herself a policy about emergency overflow, meaning our cabin was now open for public use, apparently. When Abby tried to set boundaries, Karen just kept on explaining that Dylan needed his food ordered separately because of allergies and, oh, by the way, Chinese would be great for lunch. I watched Abby smile, freeze her hands, gripping the tray so tight I thought the glasses might crack. Abby gently explained, "We weren't planning to order food for everyone. This isn't a catered event." Karen's mouth curled up like she was already plotting her next move. "You're denying food to my family on a holiday. That's exclusion, Abby. You know what I mean?" She pulled out her phone, dialing 911 before we could even answer. I tried to keep my cool, but she was already spinning her story. "There's a woman here refusing to serve food to children. Deliberate neglect. Possible discrimination. Send someone now." Miguel, dripping wet from the dock, just stared wide-eyed. And as if on cue, the distant whine of sirens cut through the summer air. By then, neighbors were peeking through curtains, phones out. Karen straightened her shoulders like she'd just won something, whispering to Dylan to record everything. I squeezed Abby's hand, told her to watch. Because the thing Karen didn't know was that Deputy Sheriff Jameson, the officer pulling up, was an old friend. He stepped out, saw me, and gave a little nod. Before he could even say hello, Karen launched in, demanding Abby's arrest for, I kid you not, emotional trauma and intentional negligence. Jameson raised an eyebrow and said, "You called 911 for this?" Karen demanded a report. Jameson just looked at us, then back at Karen and said, "Ma'am, refusing to order food is not a crime." Karen went red, shouting about discrimination, trying to drag up old grievances. Abby finally found her voice. You invited yourself, Karen. We didn't plan for this. That's not exclusion. It's boundaries. Jameson stepped in. IDs, please, he said, winking at me as he took my badge. State Police Chief credentials. Karen's jaw dropped. You're a cop. I just smiled. Dylan's phone lowered. Wait, are we in trouble? Karen was flustered, now sputtering, accusing us of disrespecting HOA rules. I just told her flat out, this is private property. You're trespassing. We could press charges, but we won't if you leave. She looked around at the neighbors, watching her power evaporating. But instead of backing down, she hissed, Enjoy your weekend, Nate. I'll have the board review your property deed next month. And just like that, she stormed off, vowing revenge. Dylan grumbled something about trash pickup and followed. I wish that was the end of it, but you know better. The next morning, 7:12 a.m., sharp, more pounding at the gate. Two guys in security uniforms, Karen, and a slick-looking older man with a folder. Effective immediately, your property is suspended pending investigation for community rule violations. Karen was all smiles, loving every second. I asked what grounds. The older guy quoted some emergency clause. Formal complaint of exclusion and misconduct. Miguel lost it, but Karen just threatened escalation. Suddenly, our sanctuary felt like a prison. Security refused to let Miguel's family back in. The sheriff couldn't do anything. It was a civil matter. Karen had found the line and was walking it. We sat in the cabin stunned. Abby's eyes were red from crying. Miguel paced. We're being held hostage over potato salad. But it wasn't about food, it was about control. Karen had wanted HOA management over the lakeside cabins for years. She just needed a trigger. That night, I pulled out the file I'd started the first month we moved in. Permits denied unless Karen approved, benches replaced by HOA-branded versions fees funneled to her brother's company. I'd gathered emails receipts enough to know it was fraud. I started piecing it together. Then Abby showed me a video Karen posted painting us as elitist villains, weaponizing kids, calling us un-American. Comments rolled in, half siding with her, half calling out the drama. That was the last straw. I stepped out onto the porch, hit record, and laid it all out: who I was, what happened, and that I had proof of every dirty deal Karen ever signed. You want war? We'll do it by the book, I said. Posted it. Let it spread. Within an hour, messages flooded in, neighbors sharing stories, some even evidence. Chuck, an accountant 5 cabins down, confirmed Karen had buried an audit 6 months back. Momentum was on our side. But then a drone buzzed past the window. Someone was watching, and it wasn't just Karen anymore. Her son's tech company, I learned, had been paid off the books to surveil residents, even fake evidence. We weren't just fighting over a cabin now. This was big. Late that night, a brick smashed our window. Miguel's daughter got cut, a threatening note inside. Get out before someone gets hurt. That was it. I called Jameson, gave him a flash drive of drone footage, faked video streams, and Karen's fraudulent invoices. Let's start bringing this house of cards down, I said. Things escalated quick. Channel 7 Lakeside News picked up the story, aired everything fraud, surveillance, doctored footage. Karen's face was everywhere, her son's voice exposed, HOA members revolting. The next HOA meeting, over 40 neighbors showed up waving signs. No more Karen law, and demanded answers. As I handed Karen the lawsuit envelope, Chuck sprinted up, white as a sheet. Dylan had gone live online, spinning the story that I'd faked it all for clout, that Abby had staged everything using my badge for revenge. His video went viral. Suddenly we were the villains again. But my friend Cameron, a tech wizard, traced Dylan's servers back to Karen's basement and found logs of every Photoshop job, every deep fake. Channel 7 aired Part 2, busting the whole operation. By morning, Karen's resignation was on our porch, notarized, turning leadership over to Chuck. The HOA dissolved. But Miguel showed up breathless. Every mailbox had a glossy flyer for Lakewood Towers exclusive condos by Whitmore Real Estate. Dylan had just started a new game. Now the fight was for the lake itself. I filed an emergency injunction, rallied the community. Channel 7 hosted a live town hall. Hundreds showed up telling stories, demanding justice. I stood there, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise on what should have been our peaceful spot. But I felt ready. We'd exposed them, we'd fought back, but it wasn't over. By week's end, Karen sold her cabin back to the community trust and left town. Dylan got charged with electronic fraud and intimidation. The condo development was put on hold pending a full-blown investigation, and our little slice of lake stayed ours. So if you're listening, wondering if it's worth it to stand up when you know you're right, let me tell you, sometimes the only way to protect your home is to fight like hell for it. If this story hit a nerve, fired you up, or just made you laugh, drop a comment. Share your thoughts on HOA justice and tell us what you would have done. Because the only way bullies win is when good people stay silent. And I don't plan on staying silent, not now, not ever.